Hey residents of Meepletown, today we are looking at Disney Jungle Cruise Adventure game where we are going to be navigating our boats down the river trying to take passengers to the end of the ride and hopefully be able to recognize which family is going to be taking over the navigation company so that we can get the most points. Now, I would tell you that I wouldn't make any river puns, river jokes during this game, but I would just be in denial. So let's get to the table and check out Disney's Jungle Cruise Adventure game. Okay, here is the setup for the game. We are going to have our boats here, and basically what we're going to be doing is rolling a die to move down the river, and we have passengers in our boats, and they have different symbols on them that will connect them to different families within the game, and one family is the one that's going to be the most valuable, and nobody knows what that family is until you can deduce it by stopping off at these different clue tokens, figuring out who those family members are, and then when you can figure out who those are, then you will figure out who is going to be the family that you want to keep aboard, because they're going to be worth 5 points at the end of the game, the ones that match the symbol on that final family. And basically what you're going to do on your turn is you are going to roll your die, and I'll be the red player first. This is the Nile Nelly boat, and I rolled a 3. Now this is going to mean two different things throughout the game. First off, it's going to mean how many spaces you're going to move. This is a roll and move game, but there is some little differences from maybe a normal roll and move game. I'm going to move 3 spaces, so 1, 2, 3. And now when I do that, I'll be able to take a lost and found token. Now, there are a couple different spots that you can land on. Most of them are going to be just the normal spots like that, where you're going to take these lost and found tokens, which is how you're going to get different things that you're going to load up into your boat. And then you're also going to be taking things that not just passengers, but you're going to be taking cargo that will give you point multipliers at the end of the game. But when I roll, I'm going to go 3 spaces, and then I'm going to draw 3 cards from this deck. I'm going to draw 4 cards from this deck. You're always going to draw 4 cards from the deck, and you're going to have to interact with these cards. Now, what you rolled is how many cards that you're going to have to interact with, and usually bad stuff is going to happen whenever you do this. All right, so I have 4 cards here, and I have to choose 3 of these that I want to interact with. You're going to have, at the top of these cards, you're going to have these, most cards, most of the ones that are the horizontal, the vertical cards. Most of them will have these danger boxes up here to show you how many dice you're going to have to roll and how many potential passengers you're going to lose as a result of rolling those dice. And so usually, not usually, always you're going to want to choose the ones that will have 0 X's, because that means you won't have to roll any dice. If you draw a card, which we happen to do on this turn, that is the horizontal, the landscape card as opposed to the portrait card, there we go, you will have to interact with this card regardless of whatever you want to choose. And if you draw multiples of these, you have to interact with those first. Now again, I have to interact with 3 of these. I have to do the carnivorous vines. Calm River is going to be the next best bet because it's 0 dice that I have to roll, and then Bathing Pool. And I'll explain how all of these work right now. So Hippopod is one that I will not have to interact with. So I can put this one away, and I'll interact with all of these cards. And in doing so, most of them you're going to be rolling dice like on the Bathing Pool, but I'll do that one last just to show you. They all have notes at the very bottom. If you've ever ridden on the Jungle Cruise ride at the Disney parks, you'll know that it is full of puns and full of jokes, and that's the whole the charm of the ride itself. And all of those same jokes are within the game, which adds a lot of charm. So you have to read those to get the full effect of the game. Carnivorous Vine says, last week one of them reached into the back of the boat and pulled a woman right out. It was awful. Just before she disappeared, she was feeling just vine. And this says that we're going to lose one passenger or cargo from the center of your boat. Now, if you look in your boat, you're going to see that you have these different areas of the boat. There's 4 different areas. There's this center right here, which is mostly where things are going to remain safe. Unfortunately, we drew a card that changed that. Then you have the starboard side, you have the port side, and then you have the stern, which is the back. And there's going to be 3 tokens in each one of those sections. So right now, this tells us that we're going to have to just remove one of these tokens. Remember, we want to keep the passengers of this family that are at the finish line. And right now, we don't have any information to know. But later on in the game, we might know, okay, this is the cruise family or something like that. Then we know that we can get rid of those family members before we get rid of other ones, because we want to keep the most valuable ones in our boat. So right now, we don't know. I will just discard this one, which only has 1 symbol on it. If they have 2, like this one right here, if they have 2 symbols on there, that means they can be a part of both 2 different families, like they married into a family. And so the probability of them being one of the families, or the family at the end of the finish line, is higher, so we'll hold on to that one. So we'll discard this one. We've interacted with carnivorous vines. Then we come to Calm River that says, and now we're on the Congo River. Let's see how far we can go. And this has 0 X's in the danger boxes, which means we don't have to do anything. This is a good card. Nothing's going to happen. We're off to a good start, only losing 1 passenger so far. Then we have the bathing pool, which says, did you know that the baby elephant can grow up to 4 feet? It's true, 1 on each leg. There we go. And now this is where kind of the crux of the game happens. We have 2 X's in the danger boxes, which means we're going to roll 2 dice, and any of the little burst there, those exclamation marks, any of those that we're going to roll, we're going to have to discard passengers from our boat that match the area that's listed on the card. So in this case, the stern is where we're going to lose passengers if we roll any of those. All right, this one is a blank, so nothing happens there, and this one is not, so we will lose 1 passenger. And let's see, since I did get rid of that river symbol earlier, I might try to maybe even things out and get rid of this lion head instead. Now the rules state that you will discard those off to the side of the board, and you might see them later on in the game. But for me, my family, we tend to like to drop them off in the jungle, because later on in the game, you're going to be picking them up as the different lost and found tiles that you're going to draw are going to dictate that's what you're going to do. And speaking of which, we will draw a lost and found tile for our boat. And I didn't mention this, sorry, we each also start off with these skipper cards, and for the red player, for the Nile Nelly, their card says that whenever you would draw a lost and found token, you may choose to rescue a lost passenger instead. So now I could draw this or take a lost passenger. It's kind of early in the game, we don't know who to take yet, so I will just take a lost and found token, which, there you go, it is a lost passenger token, which means that we're actually going to take one of these back anyway. So I think I will take this one, and when I draw them, I'll be able to put them anywhere on the boat that I want to. We'll put them in the center, since they can remain safe there. Now, at the beginning of your turn, you can actually move them around however you want on your boat. So you can, once you find out who this family is, or kind of narrow things down, you might want to put them in the center of the boat. Now it'll be the blue player's turn. They will roll the die, and they're going to get a 2, and so they'll move 2 spaces, and again, they're going to draw 4 of these cards. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, flip them over, and they will determine which 2 they're going to interact with. Now, they weren't as lucky in the draws that they had. They drew the 2 that only have 1 X in there, 1 that has 3, and then 1 in the danger box has 2. So they will, looking at where these are going to be drawn from, they choose to take the backside of water and Switcher Falls as the cards that they will interact with. Now they will roll 1 die for each for the port side of the ship, and for each, again, exclamation symbol that they roll, then they will have to discard a player. Backside of the water, and now the eighth wonder of the world, the magnificent, the amazing backside of water. Now, if you've ridden the ride, you know that this is one of the key jokes for the ride. It's always one, at least for me, it's always one of my favorite jokes. So when these cards come up, it's really enjoyable to experience those jokes, and it kind of brings you back to the ride, which I think is really cool. So we'll roll that. Oh, roll the wrong dice. There we go. Roll this die. And we will have to indeed discard one of these players. They decide to discard, let's see, we'll take this guy, discard him in there, and that was backside of water. And then Schweitzer Falls. Here's the famous Schweitzer Falls, named for the famous explorer Dr. Albert Falls. Another good one. It's got, in the rule book, you've also got these kind of jokes that go along with it. So you're actually Alberta Falls is the one who is trying to put the new person in charge of this company, and so if you're the winner, you're going to be in charge of the company. But it's, you know, corresponds to the ride jokes as well. So we're going to roll one. Unfortunately, we did roll that. Now we do have a warning flare, and what you can do with the warning flare is you can flip it over. And for any, and let's say I had to roll multiple ones, for any of these burst symbols that we got, we can re-roll those. So that's what I'll do. This is a bad die. Might have to throw this one out of the game, but we will have to discard a player and then do that. Now we will draw our lost and found token, saying that we will find a passenger, and we're going to take one of those back and put it back on our boat. So that's how a round plays out. We play for each of those. Now, what you'll do is you'll keep moving around the board. When you get to outpost, you'll have to stop there, and you can choose to either save a lost passenger, or you can take a cargo. Now, the ferry card that we drew for the Congo Queen says that we can take a cargo from the outpost and rescue a passenger. So that's the special ability that they have throughout the game. But these are the cargo tokens. These are goods that you'll put into your boat, and once you get to the very end, these are only going to be worth 1 point apiece. But if you have a set of if you have two different ones, those are going to be worth 4, and then a set of all 3 of those would be worth 10 points at the end of the game. Any passenger that you have is not the family listed here is going to be worth 3 points. Any of the family passengers that you have on the boat is going to be worth 5 points. Remember, I mentioned that once you get to these locations, you'll check these out. But the cool thing is that happens is, let's say I go and I've figured out who both of those families are. Well, the blue boat, let's say they're coming a little bit farther behind, okay? They might want to catch up, and so they can actually bypass going to those clue tokens by just going the shorter route. And then what they might do is pay attention to what the red player is doing so that they can figure out, okay, this is probably the family. Since they know who 2 of them are, I only know who 1 is. Then we can kind of deduce, at least, kind of narrow it down just based on the ones that they're discarding from their boat. But you're going to get to the end, and you have these tokens that are also worth points. If you're the first one there, you get to take the highest value one, and then every time it comes back to your turn, if the players aren't here yet, then you're actually going to take another token until all these tokens are gone, and that's going to signal the end of the game, and then whoever has the most points is going to be the winner. Well, let's talk about the art and components. Okay, so art and components, and it's hard for me not to include the jokes on the cards, and so I'm definitely going to include that. I think that a big part of this game is the jokes that you're going to read on the card. That's going to be the big draw if you're a big Jungle Cruise fan. That's why you like the ride anyway. I really love how they included those quotes, and they're funny. They cause a lot of laughter in the game, and you have a lot of fun doing that. A lot of the game is just these cardboard chips here, and these are great quality. I love that. I love the finish on the board, really nice. I love the art on the board. It's cool to look at the board and kind of, again, reminisce and brings you back to the ride itself. The boats are cool. The artwork on everything is really well done. So I really can't complain a lot about the components of the game. The ships, the boats that you're going to be going around on are cool. The dice, the look of the dice, they even match. They're not just normal dice, but they have these little smudges on it that kind of matches the feel of the game. The only negative I would say would be the thin cards, but you're not handling the cards a lot, so I don't think that that's a big deal at all. But anyway, big plus for me for the art and components. Now onto the gameplay. So the gameplay is pretty simple. It is a roll and move game, and then you're basically going to be interacting with the cards after you roll and kind of doing what it says. Now the positive is the rule set's pretty simple in this game, right? You're just going to be rolling, taking the tokens if available or whatever, interacting with whatever space that you're in. The negative is there's not a whole lot of decisions to be made in this game. The biggest decisions are, do I go the short route so I could potentially get to the end faster, giving me the points here, and then just hoping that I have the right family based on what other people are doing. That's really the biggest decisions that you're going to have to make in this game are which passengers to get rid of and then which route you're going to go. But oftentimes the decisions in this game are pretty obvious, right? So like the cards that I drew, well, obviously I'm not going to keep the one that gives me 3 unless, let's say, I have all of my stern tiles. I don't have any stern tiles. They're all out on the board, so there's no passengers back here. So then obviously I wouldn't mind taking a 3 if it was going to affect the stern side. So I would keep the bathing pool so that I would not lose any passengers. But the decision making in this game is really minimal. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're just wanting to get together and play a game, play a family game, and just laugh at the jokes, I think this is a good game to do that with. If you want something where you have to think a little bit, or you're having to strategize a little bit with really, any decisions, there's not a whole lot of decisions to make in this one. I think you might be disappointed in this. So really, it's all on your expectations of what you want from this game. Do you want to just sit around and laugh? I think this is a lot of fun. Now, a negative is this is a pretty big deck of cards. There are some jokes in there that kind of overlap, but you're going to be potentially, if you're playing a 4-player game, you're probably going to be getting through that whole deck of cards, and then you're shuffling them up, and then you're going through another deck, the same deck. And so some of those jokes are going to repeat. You're not going to read all of them because if you don't interact with all the cards, then you're not going to read those necessarily. But you're going to get through all of the jokes in one game, which is a negative, Like if you want to replay this and your whole thing was just kind of enjoying the jokes, I think you might be a little disappointed on your next play. But overall, I think it just depends on what your expectations are. Do you want to have a lot of fun, which I think is what you're going to want to do when you're playing this game. Now, another negative, though, is that the game can be kind of lengthy, depending on how you're rolling, which direction you're going to go. For this type of game, I would have liked it to be more in that 30-minute range. But if you're playing with a 4-player game, it's going to be a little bit longer than that. I think you're looking at an hour. I know our first game, we played a 4-player game. It definitely took even over an hour. And for this type of game, I would like something to be a little bit shorter. So overall, the experience was fun. We had a lot of fun with this game, but I can't foresee myself really playing this game that much more because we've already gone through the jokes. We kind of get the game. And I think we've kind of gotten all that we want out of this game. So I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10, which is actually, it's not a bad score, but just know Jungle Cruise is my favorite game, my favorite ride at Disney World. I love it. I just love the jokes. I laugh really hard when I play this game, when we read the cards. I'm laughing out loud because that's what I enjoy. If you don't really care, if you don't have that draw to Jungle Cruise like I do, you might not care for this game. I don't think you're going to care for this game really at all. And so for me, I would give this score probably a decent amount lower than that if it wasn't something that I didn't really care for. But because I do love this, I'll probably keep this in my collection for a while because the laughs, my family enjoys it. We have a good time playing it. So again, your expectations, whatever you're looking for, I give this one a 6 out of 10. I wish there were a little bit more decisions to be made, but for a laughing, a fun, laughing, simple, you don't have to think about anything game, I think this one does really well with that. If you'd like to get in touch with us, if you like our videos, definitely hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. You can also reach out to us on social media at Mapletown Games. It's on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. You can email us at mapletowngames@gmail.com. You can also just check out our website, mapletowngames.com, and you can reach out to us on Board Game Geek, Guild number 3407. And that's going to do it for this episode. Thanks for coming down to Mapletown.
Thanks for joining us, and be sure to follow us on Twitter at Mapletown Games, and connect with us on the Mapletown Guild, Guild number 3407, at BoardGameGeek.com, and also subscribe to our podcast and YouTube channel. And until next time, thanks for coming down to Mapletown.